Okay, I did take just a lame screenshot of the logo from this card, but otherwise I just have no style information and a very simple layout of the sections on the card. And now we're going to look at how to do the layout in HTML or in CSS. So the basic thing we want to do is think about how to break the card, just as we did before, into sections. We're going to use something called Flexbox. And what Flexbox will let us do is take any basic rectangle and lay out items in it nicely. So we can, for example, distribute the items. We can take the items in a column and center them like that. We can move them to the right, we can move them to the left, we can move them to the top of the row or the bottom of the row. Flexbox also lets us take anything and put it, instead of in a row, in a column. And similarly, we could stack everything on the top, we could stack it on the bottom, we could spread them out, we could center them, we could distribute them. So it gives us a bunch of options to take. If we wanted to take our items and distribute them evenly, it would do that. And then on top of that, we could make a box inside of a box. So for example, we could start with, here, let me undo all this stuff. I could start with a big box, divide it in two, and then maybe evenly space the sections. And then in the second box, I could move things across left to right. All right. So let's go back to our actual card. Our first division is into sections, like this. And we want this to move left to right. And it looks like if this is the item and this is the item, the items have basically been distributed with even space here, 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 and here, like that. So we can try something along those lines. So our container is the main, which contains these items. Actually, it might be kind of nice to do this out in the inspector. So here I can make a new style for main, display flex. All right, so the minute I make main a flexbox, it automatically displays left to right. My main might have the width of the card, so let's just say it's going to be 600 pixels wide. And if I put margin auto, it'll then center it. All right. And now justifying content moves it along the main axis. So for example, if I said right, it moves it to the right. If I say left, it moves it to the left. Center, it moves it to the center. I also have these space around, space between, and space evenly. And I think space evenly kind of did what I was imagining here. If we see space, 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 let's check that out, main. It's got even spaces in the 3 sections. That's not quite. And now let's see what space around does. Space around gave us even spaces on each side. So this space is double that space. And that's actually what we have. If I look at this card, this space is twice as big as this space. So that is space around. And what's cool is I can take this rule that I just made in the editor, I can copy it, go back to my code. I was switching tabs there, I'll show you. Go to style, and paste that in and run it. Cool. All right, so that's the first cut. Now the second cut is to ask, okay, how are these next items are moving top to bottom, obviously, like that. And there, we've got no space at the top. We just have space kind of in the middle. Well, actually, not quite. So now the question is, what's happening after each of these? It looks like what might be happening is a steady margin each case. So this is a margin, margin, margin. In other words, all of these have the same amount of space. All right, so we're going to go ahead and say the section is also display flex, but its flex direction is column. All right. And then each div has a margin after it of something like 20 pixels. Let's try that. All right, pretty good shape. Let's go into the inspector, refresh. So now each of these just has space after the sections. If I go into here, space, 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 space. We're pretty good. Only big problem I have right now is those H2 elements also have space around them. I don't want that there, so I'm going to add a new rule, H2 and H3. Just remove those margins. Margin 0. Beautiful. Space after, space after. Space after, space after, space after. So I think actually for this card, that's everything I needed. I needed that space around option, left to right. And then I just have the space after each one here. I want all of those spaces to be the same. And what's nice about the inspector is I could look at this and just, you know, fiddle with the spacing. So like if I wanted it to be, play with making it bigger or smaller just with the arrow key. Actually 20 was pretty good. I'll try 25. No, that's a little too much. 20 might have been a good guess. That actually looks pretty good. All right, and that's my whole layout. I've got a vertical container, a horizontal container. I'll have to do the shaping. And again, just to show you, let's say that these were supposed to be distributed in space instead. I would say justify content, space evenly, or I could say end to put them at the bottom, start to put them at the top, center would put them in the center. There's a bunch of options like that. And you can actually, in the inspector, you can just see all the options. One more thing that doesn't really matter for this card, but let's say that I had some elements that were out to the start or the end of the element. Justify move things in the direction. If we wanted to move, let's say we wanted the telephone numbers to be over to the right or something. I could come into here and I could say align self, oops, end. And that moves it over to the right of the Flexbox. So there's the box, those are now to the right. Start puts it as the default. Center puts it in the center of the box. And if I wanted all of the elements instead of just one, I would come up to the section, and I would say align items, end. Now they all go to the right-hand side. Start puts them all to left. Center puts them dead center. If I look at this, they're actually aligned on the left. So the default, which is the left, is the right choice. All right, very simple introduction to Flexbox.